Good morning, guys, and welcome to another episode of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments. This is episode 14. We're cracking them up pretty well at the moment. Today, we're going to be talking to Matt Rosensteele. Matt is top realtor for Tamarindo Coldwell Bankers. Matt's been in Costa Rica since 2008, originally came down in the Peace Corps, then in 2012, moved across full-time to real estate. So it's going to be an interesting talk today. As you guys have been following along, the Guanacaste Tamarindo area is pretty hot at the moment. So it's going to be interesting to get Matt's opinion on kind of what's going on there. So let's get straight into it. Remember, if you have any questions for future guests or Matt himself, all of the contact details will be in the description below. Let's get going. Thanks, guys. Matt, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Very good. It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for taking the time on this Easter Friday to talk to us.
Oh, it's a great day to stay in the office and on a podcast rather than driving around and trying to show people property, because Tamarindo, Guanacaste right now is just absolutely full of people.
Yeah, I saw pictures of the traffic on the way to Guanacaste the other day. So that must have been an interesting drive for anyone driving up there.
Totally. It's a special time of year where obviously the Central Valley, the densely populated portion of the country, is spilling out to come to our beaches. And 2-lane highways plus all of the things that happen on them headed out to Guanacaste is usually a pretty big recipe for traffic.
Yep. Well, Matt, you've been down here a fair few years, actually. I mean, what's that, going on over 13 years now? And you've worked in both real estate and also the nonprofit sector. What have you seen, and this COVID thing is just, it's just another thing that's, God knows where it's going to go. But I mean, what have you seen recently that's been a sort of surprise to you?
If anything's been surprising, it was the resilience of the real estate market immediately emerging from the pandemic shutdown and our travel closure, and not just sort of picking up momentum where it left off before things closed down, but immediately accelerating and surging. I came down in 2008 as a volunteer, and my first experience was living through the major economic crisis of 2009. That was entirely different, especially in Guanacaste. We had been seeing a development bubble, very much sort of frothy market activity that was property values doubling year after year, headed towards the financial crisis, largely fueled by speculative funny money coming out of the mortgage market in the US, or, just free flowing credit at the time. In 2009, when the financial crisis really hit, that sucked the momentum out of development in the area. And it caused, sort of a ripple in the real estate market that was years in fully playing itself out. There had been huge supply creation right before 2009 with all kinds of developers doing lots, condos, and homes. And then once we had demand drop out from underneath us in 2009, you saw stagnation that, in my community in Junquillal, really developers had anticipated a boom finally happening down here right in 2009. And it wasn't until 2015 or 16 that we started seeing reasonable market activity again in this quiet area, or really until we saw some sense of equilibrium between buyers and sellers. This crisis came. I remember a lot of people panicking back in March of last year saying, this is setting us back, who knows how long. We all need to look for jobs, people really wondering where we were going. And as soon as the initial flights started landing in November in Liberia, we started seeing people coming down to invest and very much picking up the slack where we had left off. Only 5 months later after the borders reopened, really, or we started seeing international travel, and it's an extremely hot market. People seem to be totally unconcerned with, what happens in, pandemic conditions. And in fact, really 5 months later, we're back and very much ahead of where we were before the pandemic started last March.
So, I mean, I take it that's been a surprise for you, just the uptick in the market and the demand that, I mean, again, everybody was in a nice way pooing their pants in March. I remember it very, we had to, in the tourism business, in our travel company, we had to lay off, like 60 staff. It was, it was a bloodbath, it was horrible.
Yeah.
To put it, bluntly. But I mean, that's what the sense that I'm getting is, and from you, is that surprise has really been that uptick in real estate. And I'd really like to know is, what has that done to prices?
Prices didn't change as much as you would have expected in that travel closure because, remember the overall dynamic here is that everybody owns their property outright. They paid cash for it since there's no lending for foreigners and primarily in our market, foreigners, Tamarindo, the areas north, Flamingo, Potrero, etc. They all own their property outright. In general, they were people who could afford a second home or an investment property in cash, aside from their main home in the US, Canada, or Europe, etc. So these were people who, when the pandemic started, rather than panicking and lowering their prices, a lot of sellers really dug in their heels and they said, well, no, of course I'm not going to sell during the middle of a closure where really the only buyers who were stalking around in Guanacaste from March to November of last year were saying, well, I want a deal. If I'm buying during the middle of an international shutdown, I'm going to make a predatory lowball offer on a bunch of properties and see who's really motivated. Many sellers said, no, I'm waiting until the border reopens. They felt also that there was going to be a strong surge because they figured there'd be millions of people anxious to get out of wherever they had been locked down. And by and large, they've been rewarded for their patience. So where prices kind of paused in the pandemic, sellers crossing their arms and saying, I'm going to wait until conditions come back in my favor. Now things are going up, and really what you're seeing, there's prices skyrocketing, especially for the very scarce resource of property that's in one of those high demand gated communities that are exclusive or very, very much in those absolute prime locations. The biggest price changes are happening right where, in Reserva Conchal, for example, it's a very limited amount of inventory, some beautiful homes and condos. Sellers there can ask exceedingly high prices and start to really increase as, for example, you see, well, now there's no Malinche condo on the market or one of these limited products. Right now, just outside of the Flamingo Marina, there are 4 or 5 condos for sale, currently on the market. In those scenarios, you're seeing very much price inflation based on the fact that, scarce, high demand resources that are extremely finite because of Costa Rica's protective coastal development laws. And that would be where you're seeing the biggest changes. There are other places where this surge in activity hasn't truly, spiked things just yet, where you get, either inland away from the beach and there's infinite real estate for sale, or any of the areas in between those major hubs. You get outside of Tamarindo and the stretch of coastline south of there before you get to Nosara, the next major tourism hub. There's all kinds of beaches in between there where there isn't nearly as much of the high demand because I have to be right next to the Flamingo Marina, or I have to be right next to a brilliant private school. Those sorts of spots, you're not seeing prices change radically yet.
It's interesting you say that. I've been spending a bunch of time in that area, Marbella, Junquil, La Negra, Lagartos, Avellanas, just because I'm like, okay, guys, where is this going? And I'm like, okay, well, if Tamarindo and Flamingo, I mean, that's kind of, prices of, and I'm sure they'll continue to go up, but like what I say, good value for money, but also kind of feels like Costa Rica to me, feels like it, kind of more of the rugged, empty beaches, not so,
Yep.
densely populated. I agree. I think that's the area where in the future we're going to start to see a little bit more people kind of move to, as they, the original crowds who are looking, the original people that were in Tamarindo, Nosara, Santa Teresa, Malpais are looking for that feeling they had when they first got there.
Absolutely. Everybody they come to Costa Rica with an idyllic image in their head. Right now, Tamarindo and Flamingo are great for investors, and there's a dynamic, energetic, there's tons of momentum there. For a lot of people, it doesn't fit with that idyllic image. And you're really looking at mature prices versus immature and that value in your real estate. People were looking at speculatively the Flamingo Marina project and saying, oh, this is going to greatly increase property values. Well, they've known about the marina for a decade. They've been working on it for decades.
But it's happening though, right?
It's finally happening. Absolutely. The pricing has been, anybody has been able to see these, machines working, the seawall going up. It is happening. And I doubt that any seller currently in that area is not calculating the value of the future marina into their price already. So you have as much maturity as if the marina were already there, functioning, et cetera, in some cases. And there are other communities, Marbella, Junquillal, which, by the way, I'm super offended you dropped by Junquillal and didn't call me up for a drink.
Dude, I'm sorry. I had a bunch of people that were really upset with me when I did that tour. I did an architect friend of mine who was looking to do a property development all the way from Samara all the way up to Coco, just to kind of, he'd never really explored that area before. But it was, Anyway, next time I'll be there. My WhatsApp blew up with people offended.
Yeah, it's definitely people who, this stretch of coast is filled with spots that feel like Tamarindo 20 years ago, or, Flamingo 40 years ago, or Coco 30 years ago. And, there are people with different goals, clients who want to invest in somewhere where they can walk down the street right now to 3 different cafes, go to a microbrewery, rent their condo 60% per year instead of 40%. There are those hubs for that kind of client. There are other people who are looking for that value or really don't need the level of development, who can find much better values, immature prices outside of those hubs, for sure.
I spoke to somebody the other day who had come through our travel company and was looking to. He actually looked about in 2010 at a piece of land, I think in the Flamingo area with ocean view, which it was like $20,000. He was like, how much is it worth now? And I was like, I don't think we want to do this exercise, dude. You're not going to be happy. So he was asking me of like, Rich, where do you think the next areas for the development, where is it next going to, see some pop, as someone once called it the other day. And I completely agree. I think that Nosara to Tamarindo, all that area there, I think is prime real estate.
Absolutely. It boils down to the fact that there are so many beaches in Costa Rica. They start to feel overdeveloped when there are only 4,000 or 5,000 people living there. And quickly it spills out from there. I think overall, the big dynamic that is going to pour development into other beaches is the fact that 10,000 US citizens are turning 65 every single day. The baby boomers, that's happening for the next 19 years. A certain section of those baby boomers are definitely coming to Costa Rica, and there's only room in Flamingo, Tamarindo, Potrero for so many of them. Costa Rica has positioned itself extremely well to capture more and more of those people as time goes on. And so rather than try and say, this is the spot, I think you can generally, anybody can visit a beach along the coastline and see for themselves, okay, here I'm paying a premium for existing development and demand and amenities. Here I'm getting premium real estate at a lower price because this hasn't, filled up yet.
Well, maybe I know the answer to this one, but if you could go back 5 years, Matt, to invest in something in Costa Rica, what would it be and why?
Yeah, the difficulty is in Costa Rica. I'd buy Bitcoin definitely if I
Right.
could go back 5 years. And really, I feel that I couldn't necessarily tell this to with a time machine, going to myself in 2016, because of our market conditions, 5 years, there might have been select properties out there that radically changed over those 5 years. Yeah, you did see a major jump in prices right next to Flamingo as the marina started.
Yep.
We went from speculative and the lawyers and the real estate agents just saying it was going to happen to it actually happening. So that would have been a good bet. But even then, you're looking at 5 years. I think in 2016, if I would have looked for property right in Flamingo, everybody selling then would have said, no, the marina's about to come in. It's starting any day. And there wasn't that miraculous investment in Costa Rica that 5 years ago was super underpriced.
Yes.
To me, a 20 or 30-year timeline, you've seen more radical changes. And most of the stuff that in 2016 I might have told myself is a good investment, still today, I might say the same thing. And in particular, these spots that are outside of tourism hubs if I were fortunate enough to have a large cash liquidity position, I would find those undeveloped communities, get titled land that is very close to the beach, and buy and hold it on something like a 20, 30, 40-year timeline. Personally, because I plan to be in Costa Rica for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And to me, that's where the real investment potential in terms of a radical change can happen.
Yep.
Finding one of these spots that looks like Tamarindo 20 years ago. For example, there's an acre of land 100 meters from the beach in my community, Junquillal. It's currently priced at $95,000. It's titled.
Wow.
I tell every single person that comes through saying, I want investment ideas for medium and long term. I do a lot of one-stop real estate trips where I say, this is it. It's an acre of land. You have to hold it for a while, but Junquillal right now looks like Tamarindo 20 years ago. In Tamarindo, an acre of land that close to the beach is currently incalculably, like several $1 million of value, perhaps, if it were, right behind the bars, etc. Now, Junquillal will never be Tamarindo for a variety of reasons, but you do get in those undeveloped areas, a order of magnitude differences in investment where beachside titled land that really could be available at an affordable price, very cheap now, I would buy and hold it as all kinds of hedges against inflation, against development, etc. For the future.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That area is what, an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes from the Liberia airport. So it's pretty close.
And pavement for all but 10 of those minutes.
Does it have municipal water?
Oh yeah, that's the.
Oh, there you go. I mean, you have everything you need.
Yeah, for many reasons. I would say, and we're not trying to explode Junquillal specifically. It's right in this corridor between Tamarindo and Nosara. Yep. You haven't seen prices come up whatsoever. But we've got a paved highway that ends a mile from the beach. We have fiber optic internet already throughout the community. And we do have one of the best water resources in the region where when they put a construction moratorium on properties north of us because of the lack of water, we had absolutely no water shortages because of this massive aquifer that we have. So it is a potential site for growth expansion on and on. Whether I think that the next spot that it's going to happen is wherever an international developer, a Marriott, a Westin, or somebody with a big vision for a 200, 300 unit residential community picks up a property, and really goes forward with an aggressive development plan. It could happen any minute in Marbella. It could happen any minute in Junquillal. It could happen any minute in Playa Negra, Playa Avellanas. They've started doing a couple residential communities. And that's where you might see the quickest change sort of overnight.
Yep.
Could happen in one of those communities if a developer picks up a beachfront parcel, let's say.
Yeah, I agree. Just having looked at, what the Marriott did in Los Sueños, down here, they actually built condos for their vacation club. There's going to be a movement of a lot of these hotels more towards, vacation rentals with hotel amenities or kind of bolted on the side. We're already seeing that in the tourism, the tourism sector. So,
yeah,
I mean, again, you're sure you speak to a lot of people going to be listening in here, but I mean, what advice would you give to people looking to invest in Costa Rican real estate?
Really, that patience is absolutely key, and anything that goes contrary to patience is something you should probably throw in the, including your pushy realtor, your investment oriented, somebody calling you up and saying, I've got something that's too good to be true, because very much, I don't think I've ever seen something in Costa Rica that came on the market that was, a buyer needed to swoop it up in 5 minutes, or else they were going to miss a special opportunity. Especially because the variables in Costa Rica real estate are so much greater than your variables in, U.S. homes, for example. You're coming to a foreign country where, whereas if you're in the U.S. and, okay, I want to get into a good neighborhood, a school district in San Antonio, Texas, you can feel comfortable shopping online for homes that you're going to look at, homes in nice neighborhoods where you've got all kinds of layers of the things that are very similar, one home to the next, the building standards, the codes, covenants, and restrictions, on and on. And that's controlled, very, systematic limitation of the variability of a property. Here, beyond whether it's a condo or whether it's outside of a condominium, a few key factors, there's such great variability that, yes, you need to wait, figure out whether or not, first of all, this region is the best for you, the community, the neighborhood, and finally, the specific property. And I think a lot of people get anxious because of the emotional nature of getting a Costa Rica property, finding your dream, finally making what you envision your dream retirement a reality. People get wrapped up in that emotion, getting to the beach, etc. They make quick moves when, be deliberate here in Costa Rica and take your time. And that's really my key point of advice more than anything.
I agree. It's a different world down here, right? I mean, it really is. I mean, it's beautiful. It's secure. The sun shines every day. The people are fantastic, but it's a different world.
Absolutely. And use your patience. Take time to find the right realtor, attorney, escrow team, everybody that's going to be involved in your real estate purchase. That's your key decision more than anything else. You patiently look for the right person to guide you through this process. And it's not somebody you met at the bar on your first night. Really find the right team as well, because the difference between having, there are thousands of people who have their nightmare stories online and are complaining that they met a scammer in Costa Rica. Most often those stories really could have been avoided with, I took my time, I asked for 10 references, I asked around town, I found out who they had bought and sold property with before. And, that week of research saved me $500,000 not getting into one of these scenarios that didn't work out.
Well, I've spoken to quite a few people, a lot of realtors, developers, builders, everything. But I mean, in your opinion, where do you believe the gap in the real estate market is at the moment here in Costa Rica?
In our region, out in the western coast of Guanacaste, we are missing $200,000 to $300,000 real estate that
everyone says that, dude. I mean, it's whoever does this is gonna make a killing.
Well, no, and absolutely, and that's what we're trying to fill specifically with a couple of developers I'm working with. One in Hunkial, who is doing 2-bedroom, 2-bath, brand new homes at 240. Those are 300 meters to the beach, fully titled, zero HOA fees. Yeah, I'll have to post some links. And this specifically is a developer who asked me, where is the gap in the market? And I said, currently, if, for example, in Playa Potrero, under $300,000, you can get a 500 square meter piece of property with some containers remodeled, into lovely homes, but you're paying $279,000 for something that the construction value itself is around $50,000, and that is a huge disparity. You would find that in most of the hubs currently, Tamarindo, you can't get under $300,000 for a livable, comfortable residence. It's impossible in Langosta. It's impossible in Playa Grande, Potrero, Flamingo. And so really, you could say that right now you're not going to get into one of those communities under $250,000 and into a comfortable house. We're trying to provide that $200,000 to $300,000 option in Hunkial, both through, we have 6 or 7 different condo projects that are priced in that range, but just too far from these amenities that a lot of people feel themselves in need of to actually get them moving. If there were a microbrewery on the beach plus a private school in town, there are so many people looking for $200,000 to $300,000 and quick access to all of these amenities that we would fill them in a heartbeat. The number of people who are looking for $200,000 to $300,000, but they also want to be in a very quiet place where most days they're doing a walk on the beach, reading books on the terrace, spending their time very much, in sort of a quiet scenario. Those clients are fewer and further between. So it's been a disparity. But really you're seeing, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the interesting thing that you're saying there, Matt, is because, I've spoken to a bunch of people about investing, because some people come down, or people are looking to just split their time between Costa Rica and also, say, North America. So they're looking, and during the time that they're not here, they're looking to rent their houses, and they're always like, well, can I make any money doing it? And typically I'm like, well, not really. You can kind of pay your bills. But what eats into it is property management fees, the HOA fees, they're just kind of, so I think anything priced around that 200, 300,000 that doesn't have HOA fees stands a chance of potentially making a bit of income. Maybe not huge amounts. Again, I think the goal should just be is pay your bills throughout the year.
Correct. I absolutely set my client's expectation. That's where Costa Rica properties and your vision should be oriented. To me, when I get a phone call from somebody who says, I want the absolute highest ROI, immediately, as an honest person and broker, I have a hard time thinking that, I'm going to really find something that's perfect for this client, because high ROI properties in my area are tough to really honestly make a case for in a good economy with perfect travel conditions, with a brilliant marketing program. Absolutely. There are plenty of high return on investment condos out there. And I can help you look for those in an environment where we've just gotten through the pandemic, where tourism is slowly recuperating, where everybody's cost of business is going up due to tax regulation, et cetera. In the realistic scenario, what we're looking at going forward, Costa Rica is an amazing place to improve your quality of life. It's a great place to have a free vacation home that essentially is paying for itself, where you get to come down 2 to 6 to 10 weeks per year. It is not the ideal location to put $150,000 to $250,000 and expect it to kick out 8 to 10% net cash on cash return.
Yep.
It just isn't at the moment. And I really wish it would be, and I wish it will be. But right now, the biggest returns that you can get are the happiness you feel when you step out onto a beach that's lined by jungle and palm trees, and you sit in the shade for 6 hours, enjoying the ocean and feeling your blood pressure just drop through the floor. You go eat a healthy lunch for $6, rice, beans, that's the sort of thing that really I'm talking to people about, what Costa Rica presents to you. And until we have conditions really build back in favor of those, rental investment properties, the case for ROI is weaker.
Hey, I think we can sum it up as saying Costa Rica is a lifestyle investment. All right. I mean, again,
yeah, absolutely.
That's what I say to people. I'm like, look, it's a lifestyle investment. I mean, there are maybe not real estate, but there are businesses out there in Costa Rica that can make good returns, that can make good ROI. But you're gonna have to spend some time down here to really figure that out and figure out where the gap is in the market. You're not just going to come down here.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with investors, for example, somebody who could make a ton of money comes down, spends 6 to 12 months living in Tamarindo, let's say, and scoping out fixer-upper properties that are going to be available at competitive prices. They buy that property and spend another 6 to 12 months remodeling it, turning it into something special in the rental market, a brilliant, Instagrammable, fun rental property that's got all kinds of fun perks included with surfboards and beach bikes and a special product. During that 6 to 12 months, they also meet a local manager that's going to be their person, who's not necessarily a property manager charging 20% commission on gross rental income, but they meet, for example, somebody in town who's bilingual, responsible, who can handle check-ins and check-outs, cleanings, plumbing repairs, etc. You get that person set up to be your on-the-ground, day-to-day manager of your Airbnb property, that you're paying them a great Costa Rican salary, but something that's far below 20% commission on the rentals you're going to be earning. This person now has, purchased the right property. They've made it special. They've minimized their costs by establishing an infrastructure that's not just, they're in a position, now to make great return on investment. The person that comes down and says, I want a sunrise condo because I love being across from Witches Rock Bar right in Tamarindo, pay whatever is asking price because sellers are in charge right now. I'm putting a property manager in place by the end of the week, and I'm signing off and heading out. Their condo is, going to continue to pay costs. Their rental income, if they didn't buy a remodeled, fresh, hot-looking condo, they're just going to keep fighting for those rental rates at the same prices everybody else is fighting for them. And to clean, and I do not mean to say that property managers are overpriced. The cost of them doing business is absolutely enormous. And in fact, most of them are underpaid, even charging that 20,
100% agree. 100% agree.
It's really that it's expensive to own a property here. And if you leave it in a property manager's hands, they need to make every penny they can for what it takes out of their life and their business to maintain your property and keep a positive reputation with your renters. So,
well, I mean, you mentioned it just a minute ago. I mean, and we spoke about it on the previous episode with Casey, social costs, taxes, it's all this stuff that you don't see. You can make money, but you're going to have to, there's going to be a lot of moving parts, and basically you're starting up a business.
Yeah.
If that's not what you want, expect to basically cover your costs, but if you want to make money, you're going to have to deal with the headache of running a business, which not everybody wants to do.
Correct. Absolutely. And it's, again, setting the right vision for people.
Yeah.
If you're that client, you want ROI, and this is what you're coming to Costa Rica to accomplish. Great. Here's a formula that does work. It's not just buying a property and
Yeah.
hoping for the best.
Well, that's great advice. Thank you. I mean, if you could step into my shoes right now, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't? I mean, we've covered a lot,
Yeah.
of course, but I mean, is there
That's
something particular you think that I should have asked?
Not in particular. I'm obviously it's I have my bias and the things that I hope to promote. One of which obviously is Hunkial, here where we've got undervalued property because of the lack of development here. I would have asked me about great opportunities for your investment vehicle to find a good return, even in quiet locations like Hunkial. And that's something that we can discuss on a longer term basis. We're on the same page in terms of what ROI actually happens here. And I'm pleased that you're very much in agreement, Costa Rica being a lifestyle investment. And that's about all. I think we covered pretty much everything, Richard.
Awesome. Well, the last question I like to ask everyone, if you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you do with it and why?
Right now, this is again revealing my bias, but if I had 500, I would do food trucks, not only in my community, but a couple mobile ones that I could deploy based on demand.
This is good.
Yeah. With 500, I think I could deploy 2 or 3 amazing looking Airstream, retro, cool places. In Costa Rica, you don't have to have a permit to serve food if your food is on wheels. And you could park these things in public places where you have a right to park there just like anybody else, and essentially gain free access to huge tourism markets for businesses that I would put up selling all kinds of interesting things, not to go too in depth, but that's my $1 million idea at the moment.
I think it's the best one I've had yet, Matt. So I hope listeners out there that have money that are looking to move here and start a business will have Airstreams everywhere, Matt. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, find one of the brilliant parking lots where currently for 5 months of the year, every night 20 or 30 cars come to Sunset, but there's no business there. You'll find, throughout the coast, there are tons of these parking lots right at the beach where you could essentially open up a Sunset bar and restaurant for close to zero operating, like no rent, no permitting, very low taxes. And that's sort of where I think
work on the beach.
Exactly.
Well, Matt, we'll wrap it up here. I just want to say thanks again, man, for your time. And anyone that wants to contact Matt directly, I'll put all the contact details in the description. And again, Matt, really appreciate your time and insight. It's been amazing.
Absolutely, Richard. Pleasure speaking with you today.
Cool. Have a good one.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.